Unconditional love is the foundation of all experience. What does this mean? What does unconditional mean? Well, unconditional means to be unfazed by condition, to be unbound by conditions, to transcend conditions. And so, what does transcend mean? The best example is that the screen, like a TV screen, if you're watching a movie, you can say the screen transcends the movie. The screen is unconditional to the movie, because no matter what happens on the screen, from the screen's perspective, it's all just screen. It's all just isness. It's just neutrality. Everything is equal. Whereas from the perspective of the character and the content on the screen, everything is conditional. Everything is based in separation, based in conditionality. And the screen, the character and all of the content is conditional to the screen. But the screen is not conditional to the content on the screen. The screen always transcends the content. And so unconditional love transcends the content. But it doesn't mean that it's separate from the content. It means that it's the base of the experience. The base of the movie is the screen. The screen is the base substance. The screen is just that transcendent neutrality, that isness, and that isness actually is unconditional love. That is the foundation of all experience. And that is also the body of wisdom, that is effortless impersonal being, that is knowing, that is experiencing experience, is isness. Isness is the foundation of experience. And that's what unconditional love is. And I think there's a common confusion that people get where they associate unconditional love with this kind of elated happiness, or this like very high euphoric state of like emotional love. And there's no doubt that when you're in alignment with unconditional love and you're living from this transcendent neutrality, this isness, the emotions tend to become really amazing, and you do experience lots of love on an emotional level. But the key is, unconditional love itself cannot have any emotional quality. If it did, it would be conditional. The only quality to unconditional love is the unconditionalness. It's the isness. It's just the pure substance itself. It's the pure isness of the experience. And so the first person experience of unconditional love is just switching to that isness, that transcendent neutrality. It's just being the screen instead of separating and identifying yourself as the content on the screen. And when you make that switch, it doesn't actually change the content on the screen. It just, all of the content, all of the whole experience stays the exact same. The only difference is, from the perspective of the screen, everything just is. Everything is just equal. Everything is just, you're just transcending the content. You're still aware of all the content, but you're just the isness. You're just being the isness. And that transcendent neutrality is unconditional love. And this is very key to see, because we can fall into a trap where we think that unconditional love, we start to subtly condition it, where when we associate it with those higher emotions, then we want to box challenging emotions and challenging experiences and challenging situations out of unconditional love. We don't want to be the isness to the anger or to the challenging person or to the scary experience. The lower mind tries to sort of bait us towards that conditional love, towards making things conditional. And that's actually the biting of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's the temptation of the serpent. It's bringing you into that conditional, wiggly, weak, compromised, serpent-based energy. But the energy of unconditional love is the energy of the eagle. It's the transcendent love. It's the transcendent neutrality. And that love is not bound to condition. That love is not weak and wiggly. That love is. The isnness can never be compromised. The isness can never be affected. The isness can never be traumatized or bound up or restricted or conditioned in any way. The unconditionalness always transcends the condition. And this is why unconditional love actually is your true nature, because your true nature is what is. Truth is. And you always actually are your true nature. Your true nature always is, because this isness is the foundation of all experience. The only thing that seemingly separates you from that is when you focus your attention on the mental projections which are rooted in fear, which hypnotize you into altered states, into states which are distorted, compromised, and it sets you into that pendulum-based swinging energy where you're swinging from high to low, and you're not in balance. You're not stable in this isness. But to live from this isness, from this unconditional love, is the return to the Garden of Eden. This is the return to divinity. Isness is the realm of divinity. This is where all the divine, subtle qualities lie, is from the body of wisdom, the causal body, the transcendent neutrality, the unconditional love. And this unconditional love actually is the alchemizing agent of all healing and all progression. The way that you transmute and you open up and you transform challenging experience and challenging emotions and traumatic patterns, reactionary patterns, challenging people, is by being the unconditional love, being the isness to the challenging experience. The frozen energy or the lower mind, it tries to signal to you to go back to the conditionality, to not be the isness, to not flow through the experience from the unconditional love. But you can always actually effortlessly and instantly revert back to that isness. It's just a very subtle, simple shift in perception. It's like you just notice the experience, you notice what's happening, you notice the movement, you notice the challenge, you notice whatever is happening in your field of awareness, and then you switch to the isness. You switch to that effortless, impersonal being where everything just is as it is. You're just resting as the transcendent neutrality. And from this transcendent neutrality, which is unconditional love, you can flow through the challenging experience, and you can flow through it from a place of no compromise, no reactionary energy, none of that wiggly serpent, fear-based energy. You just flow through it completely, fully, and wholly from this transcendent isness. And this is the base of all experience. And I think anyone who has experienced what they would call unconditional love knows this on some level. When you experience unconditional love, there's this feeling, there's a remembering. There's a remembering, and there's the remembering that this was always here. It was never not here. It couldn't not be here because it is the base substance. It is the foundation of all experience. It's just so incredibly subtle and so simple. It's so subtle and so simple that we completely overlook it. It's like if you're the character on the screen, you could spend your entire life never noticing the screen, because it's just, the screen just is. From the character's perspective, you can't really see the screen, you can't touch the screen, you can't taste the screen. The screen just is. The experience of the screen just is. But then the paradoxical thing is, everything that the character does, everything that it touches, everything that it tastes, everything that it interacts with in any way, is that isness. It is that transcendent neutrality. But there's no experiential quality to that. The only quality is isness. It's just the transcendentness, the neutrality. But that's very, very powerful, because when you can live from the screen, from that unconditional love, that's how you access the switchboard of consciousness. And that's how you effortlessly unwind and dissolve subconscious patterns and mental resistances. This is how you get at the roots of suffering, the roots of energetic contraction, the roots of energetic compromise, the roots of reactionary patterns. it's fueled by us swinging on the pendulum and by moving from that reactionary energy and not moving from unconditional love. But when you move from unconditional love, you're stepping outside of the problem altogether. Because that's the thing. The serpent, or the lower mind, the way that it keeps us on the hamster wheel, or it keeps us on the roller coaster, or on the pendulum, is it keeps baiting us into reacting to the problem and then trying to work the problem out on the level of the problems. It tries to get us to work the problem out on the level of the content on the screen. But the solution to the problem is never on the level of the problems. The solution to the problem actually comes from transcending the problem, from stepping out of the game altogether and just being the isness. And then you can still flow through the relative world. Even if the character knows itself to be the screen, it can still flow through and do all the normal things the character would. But from here, from this isness, there's actually space for you to step out of those reactionary cycles. And then when you're moving from this isness, you actually are in alignment with divinity. You're in alignment with creativity. And creativity is the higher loving counterpart of reactivity. Reactivity is repeating patterns. It's swinging on the pendulum. It's moving from the level of the problem. It's trying to fix the problem instead of transcending the problem. But creativity doesn't move from the level of the problem. Creativity moves from divinity, from source, from creation itself, from that transcendentness. And when you're moving from that, that's how you overcome your problems, and that's how you transmute the energy, which is keeping you stuck. Because the isness balances all scales. It balances that pendulum. It steps out of it, and then that energy stops swinging, and it stops being redirected at you because you stop reacting to it. And so it naturally starts to wither out. It's like there's nothing left for it to cling to from this isness. There's no juice for the ego to keep squeezing, to keep perpetuating that problem. And then so you're stepping out of the problem. You're still moving through the challenging experience, because if you're avoiding the challenging experience, that's actually another level of reactivity that keeps you on that level of the problem. But you can flow through the challenge, flow through the experiences in your life from this unconditionalness, from this unconditional love, this just isness that includes all challenging experiences, all experience, because it is the pure substance of experience itself. It is the foundation. You can just always switch to that isness even during the movement. And that's how you integrate your infinite nature into the relative. Because unconditional love actually is your infinite nature. Your infinite nature is this isness. It's this transcendence. And then, yeah, there's no upper limits in terms of how much you can transmute and open up and expand and divinize the energy within your relative life. That's the beautiful thing, is the unconditional love, the transcendent neutrality. By living from that and living from that unconditionality, it actually makes the conditions better. That's how you transmute the conditions. That's how you open up the conditions and you integrate. Really, it's not even so much that you integrate your infinite nature. Really, you disintegrate the mental resistance, the mental structures, the pendulum, the swinging reactionary energy. You're disintegrating that. You're dissolving that. And then what remains is your infinite nature, is your flowing energy, your true nature, your natural state. And then from there, there's no compromise, there's no swinging on the pendulum. And then that's when there's space for the infinite love and the infinite intelligence of your infinite being to flow into the experience and to give you creative solutions in the form of synchronicity, intuition, divine guidance, just like loving, magical outcomes. That's actually how unconditional love alchemizes the matrix. Because the thing is, those mental structures, those mental resistances, those mental projections, basically all the conditionality, all the subconscious programming that we're subconsciously consenting to and perpetuating, we're projecting that outwards. And then those mental structures those quiet mental structures, those actually are the substratum of the matrix. And then the matrix is what disintegrates us. It's what disintegrates our infinite nature, because to whatever degree we're consenting to those quiet mental structures and we're projecting those outwards, we're cutting off our unconditionality. We're cutting off our infinite nature because it's basically like whatever mental conditions we've built, whatever context or perspective or belief system that we've built, we're cutting off everything which isn't within the confines of that context. And so that's the root of disintegration. And so that's why integration happens by disintegrating the matrix, disintegrating the mental structures. And then what remains is the flowingness, the isness, the true nature, because true nature is. Truth is. Truth doesn't need to be believed in. It doesn't need a mental structure to support it. Truth just is. And so as you disintegrate these mental projections by moving from this unconditional love and not feeding the reactionary patterns, not feeding the frozen energy, or succumbing to that primal instinctual urge to go back to the frozenness and to not be the isness, to not be the transcendent neutrality, as you disintegrate those patterns by just being this isness, this just all balancing. This is what evens all scales, is this isness. It brings everything into balance. And then from there, that's how you're integrating your unconditional love or your infinite nature into the relative. But again, it's not even so much that you're integrating the unconditional love into anything, because unconditional love always is there. It's just that you're disintegrating the mental structures which seemingly separated you from that experience, from the unconditional love, from the isness, and from all the transcendent divine qualities and the infinite abundance and progression and beauty and humor and divinity that naturally and effortlessly makes its way into the experience when you're in alignment with unconditional love, when you're in alignment with this transcendent neutrality, and when your infinite nature isn't being filtered or disintegrated through these quiet mental structures, through these quiet mental resistances. And this is also why clarity is actually the exact same thing, because clarity is just the ability to see the truth, the ability to see what is. And so the more clarity you have, the less disintegrated you are, the less that your perspective or your perception is being disintegrated, distorted, filtered through these fear-based mental projections. The more that you've relinquished those and you're just in alignment with your true nature, with the truth of the present moment exactly as it is, from that isness, the more clarity that you have. So clarity, in a way, it's the same thing as unconditional love, because clarity just is. It's the perception of the truth, of what really is. Whereas the lower mind, the serpent energy, that works off of distorting what is. It works off of past and future mental projections, fear-based reactivity, and repeating patterns. Whereas clarity is just the perception of truth. It's the perception of what is. And this also goes into discernment, because when you're clear and you're not distorted, you have the discernment to see truth and to separate or to spot fear-based structures or fear-based patterns, because you're in alignment with your true nature, with this isness. And so you're not being clouded by the limited context, the limited belief systems, the limited structures. But again, the key is you don't have to go hunting down these contexts or these belief systems or these structures. The first person experience of those structures is simply the mental resistance or the calcified, frozen energy that you have in any sort of conscious experience, any sort of experience that you're having. When you sense that frozen energy that signals to you to go out of the isness, to go out of the flowingness, to sort of lock up and be pulled into that personalization, that person mode, that resistance, that frozenness that signals to you to stay frozen and to stay repeating the pattern, that is the first person experience of the matrix, of the subconscious programming. And so the way that you disintegrate that subconscious programming, you get rid of that stuff and you open up and transmute your experience. It's just by switching to that unconditional love. It's by relinquishing that primal instinctual urge to succumb to the old patterns, to succumb to the frozen energy, to succumb to the separation. It's through relinquishing that and just flowing through, just having that faith in unconditional love and that transcendent isness, that transcendent neutrality. And from there, again, that's the switchboard of consciousness. That's how you get it. The alchemical level, that is the philosopher's stone, is that transcendent neutrality. And from there, you don't even have to try to transmute the experience. You're not even trying to change anything, because from the isness, the screen doesn't try to change anything. Through the screen, the content doesn't matter because you're unconditional. You don't really, in a way, you don't care about the content. You can still enjoy the content, but you're not clinging to it. You're not bound to it. And so from there, from this transcendent isness, in that very strange and magical and beautiful way, the energy does begin to transmute. That's when solutions flow in. That's when synchronicities flow in, serendipity, magical guidance, just like people fall into your life, like creative ideas fall into place, like new habits develop, new anything. That's when you get creativity in your life and you get progression in your life. Because the frozen energy, the reactivity, the serpent, it's that circular motion. It's the repeating of patterns. It's being on the wheel of karma. But the way to step outside of the serpent, outside of the wheel of karma, is to transcend the whole thing. The solution to the problem is not on the level of the problems. The solution is not conditional. The solution is unconditional. It's unconditional love. And so unconditional love is the foundation of experience. And that is very, very powerful. And there's no quality to it. Like, again, I've said this in my past videos, when you switch to this, it's really quite boring. It's quite plain. There's not much experiential quality to it. Whether you're the screen or the content on the screen, all the content on the screen remains the exact same. But it's that very simple, subtle shift. And the mind can't believe it. The frozen energy wants to effort and to plot and to scheme and to plan and to react and to fight and to struggle and to try to work the problem out. But again, that's the pendulum. That's the wheel of samsara. That's the wheel of karma. That's the serpent. And so you can always just switch to this isness. You can always just switch to this transcendent isness, and you can live from this and you can move from this, and you can recognize that unconditional love is the foundation of all experience. Unconditional love is truth, is clarity, is wisdom, is the causal body, is Vijnanamaya Kosha. It just is. It's the base of experience. It's experience, experiencing experience. The isness. This is unconditional love, and this is the foundation of all experience.